Those dusty old books are just taking up space. The words crackled through my phone as I stared at the security alert lighting up my screen. My heart stopped watching my sister-in-law Rebecca walk through my study with garbage bags, throwing leather-bound first editions into them like they were old magazines. I was frozen in my hotel room in Manhattan, stuck at a rare book auction while she dismantled everything my grandfather had spent 60 years building. My name is Elena Morrison, and at 38, I run one of the most respected rare book dealerships in the Pacific Northwest. What Rebecca was trashing wasn't just a collection. It was literary history, signed first editions worth more than most people's houses. Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Steinbeck books that couldn't be replaced at any price. Honestly, Elena, your whole house smells like an old library. Rebecca's voice came through the Ring doorbell speaker as she dragged another bag toward the front door. David, and I need this space for a proper media room. These books are just collecting dust anyway. I dialed Marcus, my assistant who lived 3 blocks away. Get to my house now, I said, my voice shaking. Rebecca's throwing out the collection. The collection? His voice went sharp. I'm calling the police. No, wait. I stopped him. We need documentation first. Start filming everything and call Howard, my lawyer. Those books are worth over $1 million. This isn't a family dispute anymore. A text from Rebecca popped up while I was talking. Doing you a favor, sis. Cleaned out that creepy library room. You can thank me later. Donated everything to Goodwill. Much better use. My hands went cold. Goodwill meant the books were already out of my control, being processed, priced, sold to whoever walked in first. I switched camera views. Marcus was running up my driveway as Rebecca loaded the last bags into her Range Rover. Stop right there, Marcus shouted, but she just laughed. Excuse me, this is family business, she said with that condescending smile I'd seen 100 times. I'm helping Elena declutter. She's been meaning to do this for years. I pulled up my documentation files while booking the next flight home. My grandfather had been a literature professor at Reed College for 40 years. Every single book was cataloged, photographed, insured. The signed first edition of The Sun. Also, Rises alone was worth $350,000, and Rebecca had just tossed it in a donation bag. My phone rang. David, my brother, your wife just stole over $1 million in rare books, I said when I answered. Lena, come on, he sighed, using the nickname that usually softened me. She's just trying to help. You've been talking about reorganizing that room forever. Organizing? I cut him off. David. She threw out signed first editions. Do you understand what that means? The Steinbeck that Grandpa got signed at his book launch in 1937. It's irreplaceable. They're just books, he said, and I heard Rebecca coaching him in the background. We can buy you new ones. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay calm. A first edition is not just a book, it's a piece of history. When Hemingway signed that copy for Grandpa in Paris in 1924, there were only 3,000 printed, and now Rebecca donated it to Goodwill. The silence stretched. You're overreacting, he finally said. Check the insurance documents I sent you last year. I replied, then call me back when you understand what she just destroyed. Marcus's next text made my stomach drop. Filmed everything, but she already left with 4 bags headed toward Goodwill on Hawthorne. Police are here now. I landed in Portland 6 hours later and went straight to the Hawthorne Goodwill. My hands were steady as I walked through the doors. Years of authentication training had taught me to stay calm, but inside I was screaming. Excuse me, I approached the manager. I need to speak to whoever's processing donations from today. The manager, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, gave me a sympathetic look. Honey, we get hundreds of donations daily. Do you have a receipt? No, I said carefully, but the items were donated without my permission. They're stolen property worth over $1 million. I have documentation, and the police are involved. Her expression changed immediately. Let me get the regional manager. While I waited, I walked the book aisles, my trained eye scanning spines, and there on a bottom shelf I saw it, the distinctive green cloth binding, a first edition of The Great Gatsby. Not the signed one, thank God, but still worth $20,000. I grabbed it along with 3 others I recognized. The regional manager arrived with security footage. We've already processed and shelved 6 boxes of books, he said, leading me to a back room. Another 4 boxes went to our warehouse. 2 bags were purchased this morning. Purchase, the word hit like a punch. Show me the footage. We watched grainy video of an elderly man buying 2 grocery bags full of books for $15 total. He paid cash, no rewards card, no way to trace him. I documented everything with my phone, the remaining boxes, the books already shelved, the timestamps. Then I called Howard, my lawyer, who'd been my grandfather's attorney for 30 years. Elena, he answered immediately. Marcus briefed. Me, this is bad. How bad? I found some books here, but at least 2 bags worth maybe 30 books are already sold to an untraceable buyer, including possibly the signed Hemingway. There was a long pause. That's grand theft. We're talking felony territory. The documented value establishes this isn't just family drama. I spent the next 4 hours methodically going through every book Goodwill had received. Marcus joined me and we created 2 piles. Recovered and still missing. The missing list made me want to cry. The signed Hemingway first edition Son also. Rises the signed Fitzgerald. This Side of Paradise, a pristine, first edition of Grapes of Wrath with the original dust jacket books that represented not just money but my grandfather's relationships with the authors themselves. My phone buzzed. David finally calling back. Lena, I looked at the insurance docs. I had no idea. 30 books still missing, I said flatly, including the Hemingway Grandpa got signed in Paris. The one he told us about at every family dinner. There was background noise, then David's voice dropped. Rebecca said they were just old books taking up space. She didn't know. She never asked, I replied, and that's the problem. She saw books and assumed worthless. She didn't see 60 years of careful collecting. She didn't see Grandpa's legacy. What happens now? He asked quietly. Now the police are involved, I said, watching Marcus photograph the recovered books and Howard's filing charges. Rebecca just committed felony theft. I'm not letting this go. The next morning Rebecca showed up at my house with David trailing behind her, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. She'd traded her usual designer outfit for something more subdued. Probably on advice from the lawyer she'd clearly already consulted. Elena, this is ridiculous, she said, marching past me into the foyer. I donated some old books to charity. I should be thanked, not threatened with arrest. Old books, I kept my voice level. A first edition signed Hemingway is not an old book. It's a piece of literary history worth more than your car. That's insane, she scoffed. Who pays that much for a book? Collectors, I said shortly. Museums, universities, people who understand that some things can't be replaced. A new voice cut in. Actually, Miss Morrison is correct. Rebecca spun around to see Howard walking up the path with a leather folder under his arm. Behind him was Dr. Patricia Chen, the foremost rare book appraiser in the Northwest. I'd been expecting them both. Who the hell are you? Rebecca demanded. I'm the person explaining exactly how much trouble you're in, Howard said calmly. Miss Morrison, you deliberately took and disposed of documented assets valued at approximately $1.8 million. That's not a family dispute. That's theft by conversion. Dr. Chen opened her folder. Ms. Morrison's collection was professionally appraised last year. I have photographs, certificates of authenticity, and market comparisons. The signed Hemingway alone would sell at auction for $350,000 to $400,000. Rebecca's face went white. That's insane, they're just books. First edition books, Dr. Chen corrected, many signed by authors who died decades ago, making them literally irreplaceable. Would you feel differently if she collected original Picassos and you threw them out? This is a family matter. David interjected weakly. Can't we work this out privately? I met his eyes, the same desperate peacemaking expression he'd worn our entire lives, always smoothing over Rebecca's behavior, always asking me to be the bigger person. No, David, we can't. This isn't about family drama. She stole and destroyed irreplaceable property. The police report indicates premeditation. Howard continued. Security footage shows you entering the property with empty bags, stating your intent to clear out the room. You texted Ms. Morrison that you donated everything. This wasn't an accident. Rebecca's composure cracked. Fine, I'll apologize, she said, her voice rising. I'm sorry about your precious books. We'll buy you new ones. I took a slow breath. You can't buy new ones. That's the point. The Fitzgerald that Grandpa got signed at a Princeton reunion in 1920, that author has been dead for 80 years. You can't just replace it. The insurance company has already started the claim process. Howard added, and given the documented history of tension between you and Ms. Morrison, including the incident last year, when you damaged 3 books, punitive damages will be pursued. Wait, what incident? Rebecca demanded. I barely touched those books. You spilled red wine on a first edition Catcher in the Rye. I said flatly during Christmas dinner when you were angry I wouldn't lend David money. You laughed it off. Remember, said it was just a book. Dr. Chen made a note. That incident is documented in the insurance file. Pattern of behavior toward the collection. Rebecca turned to David in desperation. You can't let them do this to me. We're family. But David was staring at the appraisal documents, his face pale. 1.8 million, he murmured. At minimum, Dr. Chen confirmed, and that's replacement value where replacement is even possible. The cultural and historical value is incalculable. Rebecca's face twisted with rage. This is all your fault, she screamed at me, always acting superior with your rare books and your gallery openings. I just wanted to take you down a peg. Show you they're not that special. I looked at her calmly. And now you're facing felony charges. How's that working out? She lunged, but David caught her arm. You think you've won? She spat. You've ruined everything, my reputation, my standing. You did that yourself, I said quietly. I just documented it. Howard adjusted his glasses. Ms. Morrison, I strongly suggest you retain legal counsel. We're filing charges this afternoon: theft by conversion, destruction of property, and given the value we're looking at, a Class B felony. As they left, Rebecca's final shriek echoed through my entryway. They were just books. I turned to Dr. Chen, who was photographing the recovered books now displayed on my dining table. They were never just books, I said softly. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a rare book dealer in Seattle. Elena, you're not going to believe this. A customer just tried to sell me a first edition Hemingway signed to someone named Bernard Morrison. My heart stopped. That's my grandfather. The dealer continued. I recognized the signature. Hemingway's inscription matches one I'd seen in auction records. I told the seller I needed to verify provenance. He left it with me. I think you should come look. I drove to Seattle that afternoon, and there it was, the green cloth binding, the gold lettering, Hemingway's distinctive scrawl: to Bernard, friend and fellow lover of good sentences. Paris, 1924. I held it with shaking hands. The seller, the dealer said, was the elderly man from the Goodwill security footage. He claimed he bought it at a thrift store for $2. I had no idea what it was worth when he brought it to me. I called the police. They're holding it as evidence now, but after the trial it'll be returned to you. I photographed every page, the inscription, the condition, the unique first edition points. My grandfather had taught me to identify one down. I texted Marcus. 30 more to go. The next months were a blur of legal proceedings. Rebecca's lawyer tried to argue it was a misunderstanding, that she didn't know the book's value, but Howard demolished that defense with the paper trail, the insurance documents. I'd sent David last year, the detailed catalog. Rebecca had access to the previous damage incident. The criminal trial was swift. Rebecca's entitlement worked against her when she testified. She actually said on the stand they were just sitting there, collecting dust. I did her a favor. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Jennifer Park, leaned forward. Ms. Morrison's grandfather spent 60 years building this collection. He personally knew some of these authors. They inscribed books to him, and you thought it was our place to decide it was trash. But they're just books. Rebecca insisted. Nobody needs books worth thousands of dollars. It's wasteful. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, guilty on all counts. The civil trial came 3 months later. By then David had filed for divorce, moved out, started therapy. He sat in the back of the courtroom looking hollowed out. Dr. Chen testified about the missing books. We'd recovered 12 of the 30 missing: the Hemingway from Seattle, 2 Fitzgeralds from an estate sale dealer who recognized them, 4 others from various sources, but 18 were still gone, including the signed Fitzgerald and the Grapes of Wrath with its pristine dust jacket. When the final damages were announced, Rebecca went pale. $1.4 million. Her lawyer shot up. Your Honor, this will bankrupt my client. The judge barely looked up. Perhaps she should have considered that before destroying irreplaceable cultural artifacts. The amount accounts for the documented value of missing books, replacement cost for books that can be replaced, and punitive damages for deliberate destruction of property. Outside the courthouse, Rebecca's parents waited. Her father, a retired banker I'd always respected, approached me. Elena, I'm sorry, we raised her better than this. I nodded. I know, Mr. Patterson, I don't blame you. We'll be selling assets to help with the judgment, he said quietly. But there's not enough. She'll be paying this off for years. I thought about saying something gracious, but the truth was I didn't feel gracious. I felt tired and sad and still angry. A year later, my study looks different, but it's whole again. The recovered books have places of honor in climate-controlled cases. New acquisitions fill other shelves. Younger collectors' estates that I've purchased. I've become even more meticulous about security cameras on every entrance, alarmed cases, documentation for every single volume. David comes by. Sometimes we're rebuilding slowly. He'll stand in the study and say things like, I never really looked at them before, did I? Or tell me again about Grandpa getting that one signed. Rebecca moved to Arizona, forced to sell her house, her car, anything of value to make the court-ordered payments. I heard she works retail now, lives in a studio apartment. Her Instagram that once showed designer bags and luxury vacations is private now. I don't take pleasure in her downfall exactly, but I don't feel guilty either. The book collecting community rallied after the trial. Dealers across the country started watching for the missing books, sending me alerts. 3 more have been recovered that way. Just last month, someone in Boston recognized the grapes of wrath at an estate sale, contacted me immediately. I'm sitting in my study now looking at the Hemingway The Evening Light, catching the gold lettering on its spine, my grandfather's name in Hemingway's handwriting, proof of a friendship, of shared love for good sentences. My phone buzzes, a message from Marcus: estate sale tomorrow in Eugene, possible first edition. Faulkner owner says grandfather knew the author. I smile. Some things Rebecca destroyed can never be replaced, but she didn't destroy what mattered most: the knowledge my grandfather passed down, the eye for authentication, the love of literature, the understanding that books aren't just paper and ink, they're conversations across time, bridges between minds. The remaining books swim in their climate-controlled cases, safe now, protected survivors like me. And thanks to my preparation, my cameras, my documentation, my professional network, Rebecca learned the most expensive lesson of her life. They were never just books. They were legacy, and legacy, once you understand its value, is worth protecting at any cost.